the pool was always the place where I could like let all my shit go. And I had a lot of stuff in my head even as a kid.
Hello and welcome to the 134th episode of Marathon Swim Stories, where we explore the human side of the superhuman feats of endurance swimmers and those who support them. I'm marathon swimmer and coach Shannon Keegan. It's that time of year where things feel a bit too busy. And to top it off, my assistant that's been helping me with processing and producing and pushing Marathon Swim Stories out to the world graduated and moved on. I tell you this twofold. One, if you're interested in helping me to produce Marathon Swim Stories, please let me know. Shannon@intrepidwater.com. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, if you notice that episodes aren't coming out as regularly, it's because it's a lot. So bear with me. I have one more episode in the hopper after today's episode, and then I'm going to take some time to take stock and do some internal work. But I will be back. I'll look forward to scheduling some new interviews in 2022 and continuing to connect us marathon swimmers all over the world. I love hearing from you, so don't hesitate to reach out anytime. I love your feedback, your suggestions, all of it. For today's episode, it was quite a while ago that Carly Miller reached out to me looking to share her story, and I'm so glad that we finally connected and that I get to share her story with you today. I hope you enjoy Carly's story. Happy holidays. Okay, let's try that again.
Yeah.
Don't leave. Tell me, Carly, what's your story? Just in case we missed that part.
So, I pretty much lived with my dad for the first 9 years of my life, and my mom swam when she was pregnant with me, and my dad, like sometime in his not as a child, but sometime in his young adulthood, got into like just swimming laps. And I think like once I was a toddler, he was just like, I want to go to the pool and swim laps. So in order to do that, like she needs to learn how to swim. And, I have a lot of pictures of me as a baby and as a toddler, like with my dad in the water. And, that's a lot of my memories from childhood have to do with water and pools, the ocean. But yeah, so I would say by the time I was like 4, he had me swimming competitively. Like I was on like the JCC team.
Wow.
We lived in New Jersey, and I mean, I remember like competing in like 25s,
Wow,
yeah. And I really wanted to, like, even at that age, I remember like there was like qualifying for like, states and stuff. And I was never, even at that age, it was almost like I recognized that I was an okay swimmer, but like I wasn't the best. I was never going to be the fastest. I remember even at that age that there was this girl who was faster than me, and she would always be faster than me. So yeah, I was on like a JCC team, and then I don't really, I don't know, like remember so much of like the ages between like 6 to 9. But then when I was 9, I moved to live with my mom, and I joined a YMCA team. Like swimming was definitely like my thing. Growing up, my dad also got me involved in like baseball, softball, whatever. And I continued to do that as well, but like swimming was my thing. I just loved it. So yeah, when I got to Connecticut, I joined this YMCA team, and it was pretty serious. I mean, we weren't like practicing twice a day, but we practice every day. And it was like swimming, the pool was always the place where I could like let all my shit go. And I had a lot of stuff in my head even as a kid. And yeah, like continued with the YMCA team until I got to high school, and then joined the high school team. And I went to when I moved to live with my mom, we lived in this small town in Connecticut called Torrington, and the high school didn't have a pool. We practiced at the Y, and it was weird, but this random town in the northwest corner of Connecticut that was super non-diverse and weird happened to have like a couple families that had really good swimmers.
Okay.
And so like the YMCA team and the high school teams were pretty good because there was, a bunch of kids that were just really good swimmers.
Nice. Do they have good coaches?
Yeah, the YMCA team coach, not that great of a coach. My high school coach was like a huge influence in my life. Like he was probably the most influential adult in my life. Wow. Besides anyone in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And in high school, like, again, I was not the fastest swimmer. It was clear that I was not going to be, the fastest swimmer, but I worked really hard, and he noticed that. My high school coach, his name was Newell Porch. He was like an administrator at the school. His daughter was in my class in school. And yeah, I just think from pretty much like day one, he recognized that I was like a really hard worker, and that impressed him. Like the fact that I could just, because I don't know if a lot of people just don't have that work ethic. I mean, now that I'm a coach, I see that a lot of people just don't have that work ethic. Right. That work ethic is rare. And a lot of the kids that are really good swimmers don't need to have that work ethic because they're just really good swimmers.
Really talented. Yeah, I remember that.
Some of them do, for sure. I remember like the best swimmer on the team, like before I had my license, like she used to pick me up. We would go to practice before school. There was only like 5 kids that did that. And I only did it for a year because I was like just so exhausted. I didn't like, I would get to school and like not be able to function. But yeah, it was really my high school coach, I think, that had like a huge influence on my life. I went through a lot personally during that time. Like my mom got diagnosed with cancer, and like while I was in high school, there were some really hard like months and years, and swimming was the thing that got me through. It was like I just kind of let everything out when I was in the water, and maybe that's why I worked so hard. It was like the more pain that you're in the water, like the more the pain in here just kind of like
get out of your head.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, in high school, it was more like setting goals for myself and to break certain, time barriers that, and it's like, I always felt like a second short, or like a little bit short of where I wanted to be. But, I was just, I really enjoyed my high school swimming experience, and my coach, I reached out to him a couple years ago, and we're in touch again now. And That's great. Like I said, I think he was probably the biggest influence in my life at that time as an adult, aside from people in my family. And then, after high school, I was totally burnt out. Like I went to school at the University of Vermont. I didn't really think I was a good enough swimmer to swim in college. Nor did I was burnt out. Like I wanted to have a life, and I knew that, that if you swim, you don't have a life. There would be no social life.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and I think for me, when I hit like after high school too, it's like I knew I wasn't going to the Olympics, and that was like the only end game that I knew for swimming. So it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go have a life now. Like I didn't know that there was other things you could do with your swimming skills.
Yeah, I mean, so that was another thing. Like I thought my life in swimming was over.
Right. Yeah.
And for a long time it was. Like I probably was out of the water for like 15 to 17 years,
Mm-hmm.
where I would, go to a pool once in a while and do some laps, but like it wasn't anything regular. And I don't know, I guess I was busy doing other things. I didn't really feel that void in my life.
Yeah.
But, my mom ended up passing away in 2005. And after that, I went into a, bad space mentally. I was just super depressed and
Yeah.
on like a cocktail of prescribed psychiatric medicine that, was sort of, I was like not a human being. I was like not functioning. I didn't have a job. I couldn't socialize. Like I was pretty much on the couch, watching TV all day, like not functioning, not like a human functioning in society.
Yeah.
And then I would say that after my husband and I have been together since 2001. We met here in California. We didn't get married until like 2013 or 14. We were comfortable, not, didn't think we would. I never thought I would get married, but then it's like, okay, well, for like tax purposes and all these other things.
Yeah.
But like after we actually got married, I decided I love this man so much, and I'm not going to let him live with me like this for the rest of my life. So I quit all my psych meds cold turkey, and
And that's so 2005 to 2013. You were on psych meds on the couch, not really.
Well, maybe like 2009 to 2000, because there was a while where I was functioning like half, like I had a job and till like 2009, but then I would say 2009 to 2014, 15, like totally out of life. And then like I quit all my meds cold turkey, and it took like, I mean, I don't recommend that to anyone. It was just what I did and what I needed to do.
How did you know, or how did you like, I can only imagine being in that state, but like, how do you kind of break this cycle? Like, how did you know, like, I just got to get off these meds?
Well, I wasn't a functioning human being in society. I wasn't happy. It's not like the meds were helping me control my depression and anxiety, and I was like out in the world functioning. It was like I still feel like garbage every single day. How much worse can I possibly feel? Let's at least see if this could potentially work for me, and I mean, it was rough. Like the first 6 weeks I was just kind of like not, just continuing to not function. But then it was like, after maybe like 6 weeks, I was like, I kind of want to go to the pool. And that was like the thing where I was like, oh, like I started to make connections, like, because my brain had stopped working for a really long time. And I was like, oh, like I feel like I want to go to the pool. And the pool was like where I used to go to make all the stuff better. And like I remember the first time I went, I like went to the pool and jumped in the water, and I was like, oh my God, like I may not be able to swim right now. Like I may only be able to swim for like 15 minutes right now, but like, oh, this is the feeling, like that, it immediately all came back, like being submerged in the water and like all of these things. And like, oh, this is what I need to be doing, So it's like, I just kept going back and kept going back, and you slowly build, you build, it's like you build from like 15 to 30 minutes and then to an hour. And then you're doing, I really got back into it. And I got to the point where I was doing like 10Ks in the pool.
Oh, wow.
And I had never done a 10K before, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't even know. It was just, I knew that the feeling of the longer I swam, the better I felt. Like the longer I was in the water, right? When I would exit the water, that my day would be just like, I'm in my mind, just way more calm. Just
interesting. But that was you figured that out all on your own.
Yeah.
Nobody was like, oh yeah, just keep swimming longer. You just
No,
kept pushing yourself.
no,
That's amazing.
no, no. I mean, through the whole time that I was like depressed and on meds, my dad kept saying, go to the pool, go to the pool. You need to exercise. You need, everyone, says
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
But those are people that don't understand depression.
Right.
Like you can't, if I could get off the couch,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I would do all these things, but I can't physically do it.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, it was like, once I started going back, I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I mean, and then, yeah, when I did the 10Ks, I was like, wow, this feels really good. But like, I don't know. I want to do more, but I don't, the black line thing is like destroying me, and like,
Numbing.
I mean, if it was 2015, like I had been living in California, in Southern California, since 2001. And Matthew, my husband, and we had gone to the beach sporadically, but like I had never really gone into the water here. I mean, the water was like cold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When we would go to the beach, it wasn't like to go to the water. It was like to sit on the sand or maybe like have lunch or something like that. And I thought that like ocean, if you wanted to swim in the ocean, you had to be like a triathlete. And there was nothing about me that wanted to get on a bike or start run. I was like, I'd never been a land sport, like, yeah, I played softball, but like, I'm not going to start running. I'm not going to start cycling. That's not me. Mm-hmm. So like, I didn't know I wasn't clued into marathon swimming. I wasn't even clued into ocean swimming, but.
Had you done any open water on the East Coast or anything before coming to California? Have you like ever like jumped in lakes or I don't know?
Yeah, yes. I mean, like growing up in Connecticut, I went to like camps that were on lakes. Mm-hmm. And like ponds and stuff. And like, and I lifeguarded at a pond. So I had swum in lakes but it's not like you're getting in and swimming across the lake, right. Or the pond or whatever. Right. You were like water skiing or like just jumping in the water.
Yeah.
It was never like putting your face in and swimming. Mm-hmm. But so anyway, when I started to get back into swimming, I just like, as much as I wanted to like get into swimming, I knew I was very unhealthy from just being like mentally and physically from like being so sedentary for so long. Mm-hmm. And, I had mentioned that my mom passed away in 2005. She had ovarian cancer. She had also had breast cancer prior to that. Wow. But after she passed away, like a couple years after, I was tested for the BRCA gene, came back that I was BRCA2 positive. Oh, so I knew that for a couple years, but like mentally and physically, I was not in a place where I could do anything about it. Like I couldn't go through surgeries. I wasn't healthy enough to do that. Yeah. Like I just, so like once I got back in the water and got like semi-healthy, I felt like that was like and I still wasn't working, felt like that was the time to start tackling those procedures. Mm-hmm. And so I had a double mastectomy, a prophylactic, like preventative double mastectomy in 2016 in January. I mean, people don't understand, and I don't want to talk about this too much because I want to talk about the swimming, but I mean, having the BRCA gene basically increases your lifetime risk of breast cancer, right. Depending on which mutation you have. But I was like at a 87 to 90% lifetime risk of breast cancer.
Wow.
And like my lifetime risk of ovarian was like 70%.
Wow.
So I was just like, my mom didn't just get sick and die. She was sick for 15 years. And like all the things that you see and that trauma,
wow. Yeah.
It really, like, I knew that I needed to do something. So I had a double mastectomy and in January of 2016. And while I was recovering from that, like I had just gotten back in the water. And so like all my conversations with doctors were like, when can I get back in the water? Like, this is my thing now. Now I have to come and be out. But like, I knew I had to take care of it. And they were like, you'll be back in the water in like 6 to 8 weeks. You know what I mean? It was 4 months.
Oh, goodness.
I had like a skin complication. I was out of the water for 4 months. I was like doing land cardio like I hate, like crazy, because it was the only thing that like I could do to keep me sane.
Yeah.
And then I finally, my plastic surgeon was like 4 months, I went to a checkup. She was like, okay, you can go swim. Like you can go. And there was then only like a small window between that time and like the time that I had to have my next surgery.
Right.
You're just like, whatever, just let me get back. And I remember like jumping into the water that time too. And it was like, I felt like I was jumping into like my mother's womb.
Oh, wow.
It was like, oh my God, like, I just want to be submerged. She's like, you can only swim for like 30 minutes. You know what I mean?
What?
I'm like, what, but just being back was like, oh, okay. And so then that was probably like April, May. And in June, I had to have an exchange, like a second exchange procedure where they take the expanders that were in my body and replace them with permanent implants. And after that recovery was much quicker. I didn't have complications. And once I got back in the water, I was like, okay, like game on, like I'm, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but it was like, yeah, July of 2016. And I got my endurance, I was able to get my endurance back up, and I like did some research online, and I like found some people that were meeting at like the Manhattan Beach Pier to like do a mile ocean swim or whatever. And like, these people are triathletes, but like, I didn't know anything about the triathlete community then, you know what I mean? I didn't know anything about open water swimming. I didn't know anything. So like, I show up to meet these people, and like the guy that I had contacted, wasn't even there. These people are standing on the pier. They look like they're about to go swim, they're putting on wetsuits and things. It's September. It's like the warmest it's ever going to be out here.
Right. Yeah.
But I still didn't know what the water temperature was or anything like that, but I didn't have a wetsuit or anything. So like, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to run down a mile. And I stopped listening after they said run. I was like, what? Like, I can't run. You know what I mean? Like, by the time I get there, I don't know. So we walk down to the sand, they start running, I start running, you know what I mean? I'm literally thinking I'm going to go into cardiac arrest on this 1 mile run down the beach, but like, I finally get there, and none of them are anywhere to be found. They're all gone into the water. No one told me like, here's what you do. This is how you get in. Didn't know anything about going under waves or, you know what I mean? Like any of it. And I mean, I don't know what the water temperature was. It was probably mid to high 60s, but for me, that was like a big shock to the system. You know what I mean? So I'm like trying to get in and navigate this myself. And like, I'm hyperventilate, by the time I get past the surf break, like my whole body is like searing with lactic acid. You know what I mean? I'm like, what is happening? I'm looking at the Manhattan Beach Pier. It's a mile away. I'm like, I've swum 6 miles. Like I can make it there, and I didn't really have like fear about like putting my face in the water and swimming. It was more like, dealing with getting under the waves and like acclimating to the temperature. I didn't feel weird about putting my face in and swimming.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I put my face in and I swam to the pier, and like, I rounded the pier and I got out of the water, and it was literally like one of those moments you see in the movies where you're like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm alive.
Had you joined the wetsuit thing, or you just went in cold turkey?
No, I just went in. I didn't have like a wetsuit, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing in the future, if this is something I was going to like or not like. I'm just going in my bathing suit.
Yeah.
I mean, in a cap and goggles, you know what I mean? But like, these people were gone. Like they didn't, and I realized at that moment that this group of triathletes left me to die in the ocean. And like, I at that moment decided like, I didn't like triathletes and I didn't want to be one. So I get to the Manhattan Beach Pier, and I'm walking up the beach, like, and I probably had just like a look of like trauma or bewilderment on my face. And this guy is walking down the beach, and he's like, are you okay? You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, I just like, swam this for the first time. These people left me, like, I don't know what's going on. And he's like, this guy, turns out he's from Scotland. His name is Johnny. He's this big, I mean, I'm like 5'2", he's like 6'5". You know what I mean? He's like, well, come swim with us next week. We're much nicer. I'm like, well, who are you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, there's this group of people and we swim, every Sunday or whatever. And we've been doing it for however long. And I came back the next week and met these people and they became like my family.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
So, I mean, most of them wear wetsuits because most of them are, they're smart in the head. You know what I mean?
That's what you think of smart, but yeah, whatever.
But this guy, Johnny, he didn't wear a wetsuit. And this group was telling me, like there's this woman named Sue. She's not here today, but she's from England and she's attempted the English Channel a couple times. And I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, what even is this? I don't even know what you're talking about. Wow. So, I mean, I knew what triathlon was, but like when someone said to me that someone like attempted the English Channel, I don't know. I just started.
Does not compute.
Losing my mind. Yeah. I mean, I guess I started buying like books and reading, you know what I mean? And educating myself about this sport called marathon swimming. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this sounds way more like me, not triathlon. Cause I'm just going to injure myself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I just kept going back week after week and like meeting these people. And at first it was like super uncomfortable because it was like the first time that I was sort of reacclimating myself into a social environment after so long.
Yeah.
And I was like reflecting on this the other day and how important these people have become to me. And I think that that's part of the reason why is that they immediately accepted me no matter like what I look like, how uneducated I was about open water or whatever. The fact, it was just like, I was just accepted. So that was September of 2016. And, I swam a mile in the ocean that day and, several times probably, between then and December. And in December, this group has a thing where they do peer-to-peer. They swim from Hermosa Pier to Manhattan Beach Pier, which is the peer-to-peer swim that is like a race in the summer. They do it in December. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's 2 miles.
2 miles, okay.
And I'm like showing up at the beach in my bathing suit. The water's freezing. It's like legitimately high 50s then. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen right now, but I'm going to try to do this, and I'm faster than all these people, you know what I mean? Like, so I can swim faster than all these people, but like, I was not acclimated to the temperature, the distance or anything like this. Mm-hmm. But I ended up finishing the 2 miles. And I remember getting out of the water and like, my husband was, I like cried in his arms. I was like, I can't believe I swam 2 miles in the ocean
at 50.
Whatever,
57,
58, 59, I don't even know.
Yeah.
It was cold. Maybe it was even 60 or 61, but to me it felt cold. Mm-hmm. But it was such a huge deal for me to swim 2 miles, you know? And then like, so I tried to swim through that winter, and I did, like in my bathing suit. I never bought a wetsuit. Like there were days where I'd show up and it'd be like 7 feet and 7-foot waves. And, there's only one time that I ever remember going in and coming out and like not getting past the break. And I mean, there were many like life flashing before your eyes moments where the water, like I can deal with big surf in the summer, no problem. But when the water is that cold, it's like on another level because it's, like you're hyperventilating from the temperature. Yeah. There's a 7-foot wave. You're trying to go under. You're coming up. There's another one. There's another one. By the time you got out past the break, you were just exhausted. It was like, that was like, those are real gut check moments and me learning like kind of what I needed to do to become better, you know.
This is a daily occurrence or weekly or
I would say weekly at
yeah.
this point I was going, or maybe like twice a week sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And like the next year in 2017, I was kind of like, well, I want to do a 10K. I want to do an open water 10K.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I went down to a bay, to Alamitos Bay in Long Beach, which is like not exposed ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not dealing with a surf break. And I had my friend paddle, like she paddles on a stand-up paddleboard, but she doesn't paddle in open ocean. But I'm like, will you paddle for me for 10K? So I swam like 3.5 miles, you know, or 6.5 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 6.25, but I did a little more. And I made it, you know, it was good. And then I a couple months later did a 10K open ocean, right? And I was super uneducated and like how like I need feeds, you know, and like so I had a buoy, filled it up, you know, with full bottles, and I'm like carrying a 10-pound weight behind, I'm dragging it the whole way. My first, and I was like, I mean, I'm all about safety, but I've never used the buoy again because it was like that traumatic.
Wow.
But I did that swim, and we swam from like Temescal to Venice Pier or something like that. And I was exhausted after. I remember like trying to walk around Venice and being just like, I'm exhausted, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked someone in that group, like, do you think I can swim 10 miles? And they're like, yeah. And so like I talked to my friend that was in my Manhattan Beach group, like he had a kayak. I was like, hey, do you want to try paddling for me for 10 miles? And I mean, so I'm gonna jump from 6.5 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that was like a bad idea, you know. Yeah, we did that. We went out and did that, and it took me like 6 hours and 20 minutes, you know. And the last 4 miles, it was like a complete disaster. I was like swimming 10 strokes and stopping, you know what I mean? My shoulder hurt, like everything was falling apart. I didn't know what I was doing for feeds. Like I was eating like sport beans or some shit, you know what I mean? Like I don't even know. And it was a disaster, you know, but it taught me like what I needed, what each thing I did taught me what I needed to do to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there other people in your little pod that were swimming these kinds of distances, or were you the only one? No. Okay. They were somewhere in wetsuits.
The group that I did the 10K with was like a different group. Okay. Someone referred me to this group because they do longer swims, and I barely knew those guys, but my Manhattan Beach group, no, they were like 1-2 mile, like you're crazy, what are you doing? And Danny, this guy from this group, he was the guy that I asked to kayak, and he, you know, we went out and we did this thing, and it was a complete disaster, but I completed it. And I was like, okay, so if I want to do Anacapa next year, I need to learn how to breathe bilaterally. I thought the reason why my shoulder hurt really bad was because I was only breathing to one side. And, you know, like I was like, obviously I need to dial in my feeds. Like, what am I doing? You know, and like, I just, you know, and
how'd you get the idea to do Anacapa?
Well, Sylvia had been like stalking me on social media apparently, and reached out to me and was like, you know, Anacapa is a great like stepping stone for Catalina. And I was like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, what? So yeah, she put it in my head, and I was like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, let's, yeah. So I booked a date for Anacapa for 2018. And I, over the winter, taught myself how to bilateral. I mean, I had been breathing to my left for 39 years, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I taught myself how to bilateral breathe, and I started testing like these liquid feeds that people were talking about and all of these things. And I didn't have I hadn't yet at this point transitioned into swim coaching myself. I didn't have a coach. I was just like, this is kind of what I need to do in order to do this swim. I need to do like 2 10-mile swims. we went out that year, Danny and I, we repeated the route that we did. I took like 90 minutes off the time. Like I was like, and I swam the whole thing. Like I wasn't, you know, it was not a problem to swim the 10 miles. And Danny was like, wow, you know, like you've really like improved.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I did Brian and Sylvia, I don't think that they had ever piloted an Anacapa before. I think maybe they tried to like have Brian pilot Sylvia swimming. I don't really know what, but they were maybe trying to get into piloting that channel. But after my swim my day was like, we pulled out of the harbor and it was like a wall of water comes into the boat. There was like a 5-foot swell. It was dark. I'm sitting in the boat. It took us like 3 hours to get to the island. I don't even know. 12 miles. It's 12 miles. You know what I mean? The boat is flying up off the sea. Water splash. I was just like, I didn't understand what was happening. Yeah. It was my first official marathon swim. And I had known, like, I knew enough to know, like, the day that you book is your day. And like, unless the pilots or the association or whoever's running things are going to call it off, like that's your day. And if you say that you're not going to go, then you're out all that money. And I was just like, there were so many thoughts in my head on the ride out to the island. I was just like, I don't even know what this is right now.
Why did I think this was a good idea?
Yeah. What did I get myself into? But yeah, ultimately we got there, jumped in the water. You know, it took me a little longer than would have liked, but like I knew from the swell, there were waves, there were breaking waves in the middle of the channel. You know, I have waves, like pictures of waves, like breaking with like Gina in the background. You're 4 miles from shore. Wow. So it was just like that the whole time. And like, gosh. Sylvia being Sylvia, it's like, every time like you're going to stop and complain, she's going to be like, what do you want to do? Stop. And I'm just like, she knows my personality even then, was like, I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping until someone pulls me out of the water because I'm not breathing. So I made it. It was gnarly. Like, I don't even know the feeds on that. Like my bottle, I would hold it up here. There's seawater splashing into it. You know what I mean? Like, when I would get a solid, I would be like bobbing up and down by the boat to have Sylvia try and toss it into my mouth. There was just like, there was a small craft advisory and 15 knot winds. And
oh my gosh,
the swim took me like 7 hours, 19 minutes. And I was like, I was just stoked that I finished.
Yeah, my goodness. What a huge boost of confidence, if nothing else.
That swim being my first official swim gave me a ton of confidence, because it was like, if I can do that in those conditions, yeah, whatever. So
do you think that your kind of stubbornness played more into your finishing, or more like your crew style? You referred to Sylvia being like Sylvia, but like, do you think that, or was it just the interplay between the two that
I think
made
it was
work?
both. But I think like knowing me, like I had gone into it and I had told my whole crew, like, I'm not getting out of the water until, I'm dead or like I reach the other side. Wow. That was how I kind of approached everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and people, yeah, like, like even though Sylvia didn't know me that well at that point, and even like, my husband was on the boat, Danny was on the boat, Cherie Edborg was on the boat. She was my observer. These people didn't know me all that well, except for my husband at the time. You know what I mean? But it was just that kind of attitude that I had about the whole thing going into it. Like, I'm just going to do this and balls to the wall. Let's go. You know what I mean? I didn't come out here to quit. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And because I had at that time, I had decided I wanted to do the California Triple Crown. I wanted to do it for my mom. And when I'm struggling out there, I just think of people struggling more than me. There's always someone that the swim is dedicated to, whether it's my mom or my friends or whatever with cancer. I mean, I'm always doing a fundraiser for her hereditary cancer organization that I spend a lot of time volunteering for. So, I mean, yeah, just thinking about those things just get me through. Like what I'm dealing with right now is nothing in comparison to,
Yeah.
So got through that swim, and like literally a month later signed up for Catalina and was like, Danny, am I crazy? You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I need you to paddle for me. And am I crazy?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you're crazy, but like, let's go,
Nice. That's great. That's a good friend.
Yeah. And then, like I got, I think Amber Baker introduced me to Dan Simonelli, and he came on board for my Catalina swim. He didn't end up paddling it because he had a conflict, and Barb Schumacher paddled it. But like, yeah, I prepared to do Catalina the next year, in
so
2019.
2019. Okay.
And, like I had ideas in my head about what I wanted to do for training. Like I wanted to do back-to-back 6-hour swims. Like I wanted to do,
how'd you get those ideas for what to do for training? Did you
my friend Sue, who had attempted the English Channel, told me about doing back-to-back 6-hour swims. That sounded like a really good idea, because it was like, oh, you're kind of like simulating the whole swim within a 24-hour period or like a 30-hour period.
Right.
And so that seemed like a really good idea. And so we went out to Catalina to do the swims along the island, and the water was free. It was the end of June, and the water was like low 60s. And that was like kind of my first like battle through cold, really cold training. But it was fun. I was having fun with it. Like my friends were with me, that, we set it up that it was just really fun. Like, I had my husband and 2 other friends. We were doing 2-hour, paddle, they were each paddling with me for 2 hours. It was just fun. And, like I did like a 15-mile and a 16-mile training swim. Like my training was dialed in.
Yeah. Wow.
Like people would be like, you're overtraining, like you're doing too much. And I'm like, cool. I'm just doing my own thing. I'm teaching myself, and we'll see if I complete the swim, and then you could tell me that I'm overtrained.
Yeah.
Because I need this for my mental confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about.
And as long as my body is not broken down when I go into it, like, I feel like I'm fine. And I was always giving myself like 3 weeks to taper. And Catalina, that was my first time like swimming through the night.
Did you do any night swimming leading up to it to prepare?
No, I just did getting in the water in the dark in the morning and swimming into.
Right, yeah.
And I would be like with Danny in these situations, and he would be like, oh yeah, it's 0 shark 30, or oh yeah, you're swimming over like 30,000 feet of water right now, or oh yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm like, what? Oh, it's so windy right now. Are you sure you want to go out and do this? It's not too late to go to a pool, And I'll be like, dude. Yeah. So I put myself in situations where like I did gnarly training swims. I did, things that prepared me. And I had Catalina delivered me pristine conditions. I just think because Anacapa was a complete shit show.
Right.
So yeah, Catalina, great conditions, but like the last, when the sun came up, it was like I could see, and the cliffs looked right there, but they weren't right there, and they looked right there for like 5 hours, and I was just losing my mind. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was, yelling at my crew, yelling at everyone on the boat, like, how far is left? You need to tell me the truth. Like, I just felt like no one was telling me the truth. You know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't getting closer, but it was like my first experience with that. Like everyone says, don't look at it, don't, how do you not look at it? You know what I mean? Like, what are you saying? Exactly. So I was mentally like destroyed for the last few hours, but like I finished, you know, I think I was like 12:47. And I remember when I finished that it wasn't so much that I was so physically exhausted. It was just like I was mentally like, why is that there for so long? And it's just taking me so long to get there.
Right.
I just think I hit kind of like a current at
Really
the
strong
end.
current,
yeah. And it just took me longer, you know, to finish. But I was like, I don't really want to fall apart like that mentally at the end of swims. Like, I don't want to be screaming at the boat or my crew, and everyone's laughing because like I'm swearing and they think it's funny, but like it's not funny to me. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, like going into the next year, which was 2020, I was like, yeah, I really want Tahoe to be different in the sense where like I don't lose my mind at the end.
Right.
And I feel like I've really improved upon that.
How did you train for that aspect?
I don't know.
I
just it was just experience.
Yeah.
It was like doing more and more swims, you know, like, I mean, I did the width of Tahoe the year I did Catalina to prepare for the length. But it was just mentally like knowing that you don't want to get that way. Like if you're not breaking down physically, like there's no reason to break down mentally. Like and maybe listen to people and don't look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like Tahoe and like 2020 was crazy because like no one knew if anything was going to happen, and it was just like it was my last swim in the California Triple Crown, and I just really wanted to get it done because I knew that like taking it into 21, like more people were going to be added to that list, and it was still under 20, and I wanted to get on under 20, and like I was just like, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm just going to train through the pandemic. And I did. I mean, like up until 2021, I had done like 95% of my training alone. And I'm not advocating that other people do that. But I did that. And yeah, I think that just like during Tahoe at the beginning, like the length of Tahoe, like Brian and Sylvia, we're standing on the dock and they're telling me, oh yeah, at the beginning, this is going to happen. I didn't even, I wasn't even listening. I'm in my mind, you know what I mean? So when that beginning part of like crazy choppiness and current or whatever they were talking about was happening, I started losing my mind. And this was like an hour in, and I'm like, what is happening? And, but then I was like, checked it and was like, okay, this is now going to end. This is over now. And like, you're going to go back to, and I felt like Tahoe was a huge improvement upon Catalina in terms of like not losing my mind, not screaming at people. Like people, like when it was over being like, you didn't even swear that much. Like, are you good? Like, what, you know what I mean? But that was, I didn't look. Like every time I fed, I looked behind me. You know what I mean? I just, I had learned a little bit. I never asked how far we had left. And it was just like, all of a sudden, this is your last feed, and okay, this is it. And that seemed like a way better approach to everything. Like it didn't use a lot of energy. When you're losing
guilty
your mind,
afterwards
just
from yelling at people.
100%.
What did you have any like this shift from the salt to the lake? I don't know. Some people.
I mean, that was a disaster. Freshwater is a disaster. Like when I swam the width, I was like, I don't understand why I feel like I'm drowning. Also, everything hurts like 3 miles in. I looked at pictures of myself. Like I did the width tandem with a friend, with Jessica Wood. And she's like, why was your body like out of the water the whole time? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm looking at photos, like my body position's all messed up, like really hot. Like it was like I was trying to compensate for like drowning in the water. But doing the width, I was like, oh, like I really need to fix a lot of things if I'm going to do the length. you know, and I don't know what those things are. And I'm definitely not going to do a lot of swimming in fresh water, you know, but I'm going to try and, I don't know, fix my head. I don't know. Like I have things that I wanted to do. Like I felt like my head was too high, like, and that was maybe making my shoulder hurt too early. So I just tried to like have a more neutral body position. And I don't know. I mean, there was pretty much, I also had COVID like a month before my Tahoe length, and I had it really bad. Like I had like a GI, like I threw up for 10 days.
Oh my goodness.
I had like when I got back into the ocean, I made my husband come with me and walk the beach so I didn't like die. And I could only swim for like 20 minutes.
Oh my God.
And I was like, how am I going to swim 20 miles in like 3.5 weeks?
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to like all these other things that I've watched people in my life deal with. My mom, you know, my friend Scott was sick with cancer at the time. And I was just like, whatever I'm going to deal with in the water is nothing compared to any of this. So like, just get through it. It's fine. So yeah, I did Tahoe and it was about 13 hours. And when I finished it, I felt like that was the hardest thing that I had ever done. Like my arms felt so much different than after Catalina. I don't know if it's the altitude of the fresh water, but like I couldn't even like rest on my arm, you know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, and it wasn't like shoulder pain, it was like, oh, that's just all over muscle
use
pain.
Yes, use my shoulders are tired from being used.
But like you know, I got home from Tahoe. I immediately was like, you know, I kind of want to do something else. I reached out to New York Open Water. I was like, can I do 20 bridges? Do you have a slot for me? You know, and I knew that in normal years, it would be hard to do 20 bridges. And they were like, yeah, here you go. October 1st. Wow. Let's go. I was like, all right, you know, and then I was like, shit, can I do this? Like, I just did this. Can I do that? You know, I knew it was 28.5 miles, but I also knew that everyone said that it's not really like, you know, cause you get the current assist. So I just signed up for it and was like, okay, I'm going to do this.
And this is in 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I did Tahoe August 11th. I ended up, my date for 20 bridges was October 1st.
Wow.
So yeah, I just went straight into like training for that. Yeah. And then, and I also booked Coronado and did Coronado on October 15th.
Right after you got back?
Yeah. And I was tired.
Tell us about Manhattan, I bet. Yeah. Tell me about Manhattan.
Manhattan was epic because I was born in New York City and I really wanted to do that swim for like my mom and my dad and my grandparents. And it was fun. It was like cleaner than I thought. It was super fun. The views are epic. Everything's beautiful. Like at the end, I definitely got tired. I think my body was just tired. Like it was just like, when are we going to be done? I'm tired. Yeah. You know, but also I had started to have issues with my stomach during Tahoe with feeds, and those issues were continuing, and they continued through Manhattan and Coronado. But you know, I finished. It was fine. Everything was fine. You know,
why do you think you wanted to do Coronado right after Manhattan?
Well, I wanted to do Coronado because it wasn't, I think I had it booked before Manhattan, but okay. Coronado was a place that I had been with my mom when I was young, and my grandparents had also had a place there. So like all the swims I do are emotionally significant for whatever reason. And I just really wanted to do that swimming because Dan Simonelli and I had become just better friends over the years. And because he wasn't able to do my Catalina, it was like, this is the swim that we get to do together. And it's just going to be me and Dan, and there's not going to be a boat. It's just me and Dan out on the water. And I just really wanted to do that, you know? Yep. And I knew that like, whatever, 11 miles after just doing whatever I just did is like not an issue, you know? Those are the things that you learn too over the years, that like, if you could swim 28 miles and like, you know, you do 10 miles on like a Tuesday, an average Tuesday, it's fine, you know? so yeah, knocked those out. And yeah, it had sort of been in my head that I wanted to do Santa Monica. I wanted to do the entire width of Santa Monica Bay.
Oh, wow.
For a couple years. Like Amy Gubser had told me about it, like right after she did it. And I was like, that's like a thing. Like what? Like really? And I had swum so much of the coastline because I live here.
Mm-hmm.
And so like from Malibu to PV, I hadn't swum every part of the coastline, but I had swum a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really wanted to do that swim. And like after she told me about it, which was probably maybe in like 2017, 2018, maybe 2018, because I think I just finished Catalina.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, I guess that was 2019. I don't know. I like went home and like looked it up and saw that like at the time she was like she was the third person to do it. Wow. I was like, only 3 people have done this. This is cool, you know, like this is my home water, you know. And I saw that the first 2 people that had done it were Forrest Nelson, who is head of the Catalina Channel Swim Federation, and Jen Schumacher. And Jen is the daughter of Barb, who was my paddler on Catalina. And like all these signs were like, you know, and Amy was like, I'm like, Amy, I can't swim 27 miles. She's like, you could totally swim 27 miles and I'll crew for you and it's fine and whatever. And for like 2 years, you know, however long I had this in my head. And so like, yeah, when I finished Tahoe, I booked a boat for the swim. And but I knew it was going to be like the most challenging thing that I had ever done, or I thought it would be. I don't know if it was. Now people ask me that. I don't know which one. They're all different. Like all the swims are different. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
But I was definitely scared of this one. I was scared of 27 true miles, not 28.5 in the rivers around Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
And I trained a lot. Like I did back-to-back 6 hours. I did 6-4, 6-4. I did so many back-to-back swims. I did a 7-hour. I did a 9-hour. The 9-hour was the longest that I'd ever been in the water for a non-official swim.
Wow.
Like I was like, I'm just going to do everything that I can possibly do to, you know, yeah, it's only another 10K, but like, I thought that 10K would destroy me at the end, you know? We get up, you know, it's the day, whatever, September 21 to 22 of this year. You know, we get on the boat, everything looks pretty and calm and whatever. And then you start getting up to Malibu and it's like, you know, the water is just animated and it's moving and there's like a 5-foot swell and it's very windy. Like the videos of the start, like all you can hear is like, you know, wind, you know. And you know, I'm just like, what did I get myself into? You know what I mean? Like the whole, like,
have there ever been a swim that you started that you didn't think that? I feel like that I've always asked myself that right before I get in the water. Like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, I was like, we need to turn the boat around. Like I don't know what I was thinking, but I was wrong. You know, but I think having Amy there, like I had assembled for this swim the best, most experienced crew that I ever had. I mean, I had Dan Simonelli, I had Barb, I had Danny, you know, my kayaker, I had Amy Gubser, I had John York, I had, you know what I mean? Like I had the most experienced crew and I was on Pacific Star and those guys are amazing. And they had piloted the swim once before. 2 people did it between Amy and the time that I did it. Mm-hmm. Abby Bergman, who I spoke to a lot about it, and this guy Zach, who was friends with Amy. He like blazed it out in June in like 12 hours and 30, something like that. And I would just remember being like, how did he even, like 12, like that was faster than my Catalina.
Right. That's really fast for 27 miles.
Yeah. So I'm like, after he did it, I was like, this is going to legit take me 20 hours. Like it's going to, so in my mind, I had told myself 20 hours. Mm-hmm. And it yeah, I mean, there ended up being a huge swell, and from like an hour in the water, I was vomited the whole time. Couldn't
Oh
keep
no.
anything down. I mean, Amy finally figured out like a concoction for me of like hot tea with honey and electrolytes that I was able to keep down. Did that 15-hour. It ended up I was 1458. Did the whole
Wow.
thing on hot
Hot tea,
hot
honey,
tea and
electrolytes.
electrolytes.
Wow. That's what you need though.
And
That's a good concoction.
yeah, and realized that like probably I need to move away from traditional feeds,
Mm-hmm.
that they're just not my thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, I mean, I think easily Santa Monica Bay was probably the most epic swim that I've done. I dedicated that swim to Dan Simonelli and my friend Scott. And my friend Scott ended up passing away a couple weeks ago.
Sorry.
So, you know, it's been a challenging time. It's my father-in-law passed away like 5 days after the swim. So there's never really, you know, when you like train for something for so long and you really want to ride that high, there was never like kind of that high. But yeah, it's still epic that I did it. And the fact that I'm the sixth person to ever do that swim is awesome. You know, I love being able to know that and say that, because this is my home water. I love it here so much, you know.
So cool.
But now I know why only 6 people have done that swim. It's no joke. And the beginning and the end are not like other swims. They're not like Catalina or Tahoe. They're just gnarly. Like you having to navigate, you know, us, you know, Amy swam into the start with me, and I mean, it's just waves, you know, and just moving water and rocks everywhere. And
wow.
I didn't get injured at the start, which was great. But the end, it was just like you're getting slammed into jagged rocks repeatedly by waves. And I was just like bleeding everywhere. You know what I mean? There's like no real place to clear the water. The finish is called Rocky Point. So now I know why it's called Rocky Point. Like there's literally pieces of myself and my crew left on those rocks.
Oh, geez. Oh, geez. What an accomplishment.
Yeah. Super epic.
Super epic. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Carly.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that you haven't been able to really bask in that accomplishment. Sorry for your losses.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, I think that I will continue to do swims that are emotionally significant to me for whatever reason, and swim for people that are meaningful to me for whatever reason. And I know you used to ask a lot, like, are you a process versus outcome person? I haven't heard you ask that a lot.
In a while.
Yeah. But I think that I am very process driven, like, because if I didn't enjoy being out there every day, or if I didn't need to do it to maintain my mental health and sanity, like, you know, that's a big part of like why I'm out there, why I'm doing it. It makes me feel good. You know, so the outcome is the outcome, whatever the outcome is. But my life will always be like living to swim. So, you know, why not try and achieve some cool goals along the way?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what's next. People keep asking me.
I won't ask, but I do
want to
know.
It's like, let a person, you know what I mean? I think I need a year. I've been like, ever since I got into it, just like consecutively year after year, like doing, I'm not saying I want to take a year off, because that would be bad for me. But I think I want to take a year to do like more mid-distance, like fun swims that aren't going to put a ton of pressure on me.
Yeah. What would you say that you've learned about yourself from marathon swimming?
I think I've learned that I'm way stronger and more capable than I give myself credit for. That even though I may be experiencing certain things in my mind, the fact that I keep going on and just like my perseverance, you know what I mean? Like that, being able to like, I don't know if I bounce back great, you know, from things like death, but like I still get up the next day and like go to the water and go to the pool and, you know, just try and do what I need to do. So I guess, yeah, I've just learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought, that I'd never thought that I could do, you know, that I could swim 20 miles or 27 miles or any of that.
Yeah.
But I think that like, you know, each time you complete one of these things, it's like, oh, I can do that. And maybe I can even do more. Right. And do I want to do more? And if I do want to do more, like I probably can, you know?
Yeah.
So I think like, because I've always struggled with mental illness, like it's really been the swimming that has taught me, because I think I've always been insecure about that. Like, how strong are you really? Well, in order to get through everything I've gone through, I guess I am really strong. Yes, and I think in the swims, I think about the people that, are suffering more than me or that have, but I also think about the fact that if I could get through so much suffering on land that I've been through, that like getting through this swim is really just not a big deal. Exactly. Like that emotional and mental suffering is so much greater than, you know, anything physical that you're feeling in the water at that time. And most likely it's going to change or pass. Like you're going to feel differently in 30 minutes, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So
that's beautiful. You're amazing vessel of strength, Carly. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have you heard of the Intrepid Water Accountability Group? We'll support and encourage each other on a private chat platform, pursue monthly challenges both in the water and on land, and meet virtually once a month to dive deep on a topic. If you'd like to join a group of like-minded limit pushers from around the globe, join the Intrepid Water Accountability Group. Find out more at intrepidwater.com.